Okay, hello everyone. My name is Tom Economon, and on behalf of the rest of the SU2 Foundation board, I extend you a warm welcome to our second annual SU2 conference. So this event is near and dear to my heart. We've been getting together every 6 years to discuss the latest and greatest in the SU2 project. And I'm here today to give you a little welcome, give you an intro, tell you what we got on tap in the agenda. We've got a lot of exciting talks for you. Yeah, really just get you excited about what we're gonna show you in this conference in this 3 days. Okay. So to get started, as I said, we've been meeting every year now since 2016. And in the early days, it was primarily the most active developer groups around the world that were participating in the meeting. It was a little less formal. We would get together and talk about what folks were working on in the project, talk about kind of nitty-gritty of development details, things like that. And you can see some of the shots I've got here from 2016, 17, 18, 19. The original groups getting together. You can see the numbers starting to grow as we get to 2019. And so last year, 2020, we decided for the first time that there were a lot of folks out in the community that we knew were using the software. We knew, wanted to kind of get involved with the community that we didn't think we were really reaching. So for the first time in 2020, we rebranded this meeting that we have been having each year to be the first SU2 conference. And so we deliberately changed it from a developers meeting to a conference. And unfortunately, the only photo I have from last year is this small screenshot from the webinar, because of course it was also virtual. But don't let that fool you. This was our biggest meeting yet. We had about 100 people dialed in regularly. We had something like 25 talks, a bunch of great sessions. So it was really a great event, and it grew quite a bit, even from the previous one in 2019. So this year we're doing the same. This is our second annual SU2 conference, so same name, where we've opened it up to all users and developers, and we want to hear what the community is doing. So I like to start with a couple slides that most folks have probably seen, but I like to keep them as the basics in case we have some new folks in the audience. So the original motivation for the SU2 project is as follows. I have a little screen grab here. It's a little blurry, but that's the SU2 website back in October 2012. And we had released the code at the beginning of 2012 in January. And you can't read it here, of course, it's too grainy, but I'll show you what's in that box. I'll give you a second to read it. So the project from the start has always been about trying to put out a software package that people could use for free for multi-physics analysis and design. But we also wanted to go beyond that. We wanted to get people not just using the software, but also developing the software, working together. There's always been a heavy community component to this project, and something we're very proud of. So over those years, well, I also like to start with the key technology of what we're actually talking about as a reminder. So SU2 itself is a software package for multi-physics analysis and design on unstructured meshes with grading availability through adjoints. It's open source, as we just said. It's under the LGPL 2.1 license, and it's freely available on GitHub. Some of the major tenets of the project are that it's reusable, readable, portable. We really want it to be a research platform for anybody that needs it out in the community, whether it's academia, industry, government, and it can serve purpose for multi-physics, adjoint methods, but also things like high performance computing, numerical methods in general, etc. And the code itself is also meant to be high performance. So we focused a lot on that over the years, making sure that the software works well in many environments. Like we said, it's very portable. So it's primarily a C++ MPI OpenMP type code, but we do have a Python layer for automation, which is very important for some of the optimization capabilities that you'll see in this conference. So over the years, I already introduced that we've been meeting regularly each year since 2016. So you'll see some of those key times here on this, the timeline. You'll see some of those marked, so 2016, 17, and beyond. But also on this timeline, I like to call out our major releases. So you see those noted there in the teardrops over the years, and we're currently on version 7.1.1. And there's another big star on the timeline that I like to point out as well, which is in May of 2019, we formed the SU2 Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization to help support the project. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but it's something very important to point out on this timeline. So last year, you see our first annual SU2 conference there on the right in June, and that brings us to the end of the timeline this year, our second annual conference. So it's become a little bit of a tradition in this welcome talk to kind of round up some of the numbers about the project and tell folks how we're doing. So first, let's just talk about the project itself. So the web hits basically at the project website. And this is by country. This is just off Google Analytics. So you can see in the background here this map showing just the wide access to the project from all around the world. It's something we're very excited to have folks all over the place downloading the code, using the code, getting on the website, checking out the materials. If you look a little closer, you can see that broken down here by country, which also just goes to show what I was just saying. So very wide coverage from different parts of the world. All corners, led by the United States, but closely following are China and India. But then again, it's spread everywhere, which is very exciting for us as a project. So a few other numbers to throw at you. We've got a little over 3,800 people registered on the project email list. Each 2 weeks, about 6,000 or a little over access the repository. So basically they go to the repository website and there's a hit registered there. We have about 700 plus clones of the actual repository every 2 weeks. And since we've started putting out releases on GitHub, this number is well over 10,000. It's much higher now. I just left it at 10,000 of the downloads of our releases, the binaries from the website. Also, beyond just the kind of project as a whole, I also like to talk a little bit about development numbers. So specific to code and what people are doing in terms of development, some of the stats and figures related to that. So this is just a little timeline that shows the commits to the repository since we first put it on to GitHub, even though there were a couple years before that when it was not on GitHub. But you can see that a lot of activity and just steady growth over the years and a very, very active last 2 or 3 years for the project. One moment. Okay. Yep, I may have to say next. So right now where we are in terms of lines of code in the project, we have about 150,000 lines of C and C++ code. That's as of the current release that we have. Over the last year, since last June, we've put in about 143 pull requests. So these are contributions to the repository, new features, new developments that the community has integrated into the repository. We have about 500 or so, plus or minus, tests, continuous end-to-end and unit tests that are running on the software all the time in the repository. We have roughly 235 branches in the repository. So these are different branches of the code where developers are implementing new features. Not all are active, but it shows at least that there's a lot of folks working in a lot of different areas of the software. Since last year, basically, when we were at 7.0.5, we've got about 1,700 commits to the master branch, so the main line, since that version. And we have roughly 590 forks on GitHub. And this is sort of a proxy for developers that are out in the wild working with the software. So we like to track that number and hopefully see it grow over time. People that are actually downloading the code and using it and developing. Okay. Okay, let's look a little more closely at the lines of code over the releases. So what you're seeing here in this plot is the number of lines on the left on Y and the releases along the X on the bottom. And you see that over time, we had a steady rise in lines of code until around version 7. It's maybe a little tough to see in the numbers there, but starting around version 7, we've made a concerted effort as a community to try to get a little better organized, try to cut down on duplication and just get better control of the number of lines of code. So we've been bringing that number down quite a bit over the life of the major version 7 and subsequent releases there, leading to today in 7.1.1, and there's also some code in the develop branch that hasn't been released yet. And if we look similarly at the number of files in the project, so this is number of files on the left along releases at the bottom. You can see that earlier in the life of the project we had fewer files, larger files. It's a little harder to manage. So similarly, around that time of version 7, we started making a push for fewer files. More files with fewer lines. So you see here we're jumping up to quite a bit more files. And if you go next, you'll see that over time now we're showing lines per C++ file on the right axis, and that's dropping over time. And so this just helps us be better organized and helps avoid conflicts. So we're making a very deliberate effort over these last releases to try to improve the development process in that sense. So I'm not going to go through all of these. I would say just we'll go ahead and click through the list. Yeah, it's just a note to say that there's a lot going on in the repository at any given time. A number of these things here you'll see in the event this week. Like I said, I'm not going to go through them all, but just know that there's a lot of activity, and if you want to be involved, you can go to the repository, look at the list of pull requests. You can see a lot of discussion there. There's a lot of active back and forth between the developers on developing different features and integrating code into the repository, and there's just a lot of great work happening. So this slide is just to note some of those things. There are, of course, too many to mention, but if you want to get involved, please do look there. Go next. And we'll just animate all these bullets. So the resources I just want to remind everybody that we have available are the GitHub code repository itself. So that's where the software is hosted. In particular, I want to highlight that we really do encourage people out in the community, if you have a fork or if you're working on the software, to start engaging with the folks on the repository, the developers. Open draft pull requests early, open issues, comment and work together. There's a lot that can be learned on both sides. It's a really good experience, so we encourage that. This past year, we've also been doing a weekly developer meeting, which I think has been very successful. It's every week on Wednesdays. Anybody who's interested in sort of developing software, we have roughly 12 people plus or minus that are there every week of the active developers, and there's a lot of good discussion. People come with questions, and we can talk about how to implement things, or maybe even some of the research or science behind the issues, and it makes for a great conversation. So the link is there. That's a permanent link. You can go ahead and click that and join us on Wednesdays. And then lastly, we have the SU2 workspace on Slack, and this is just a way to communicate among developers. And so that link there is live. These slides will be posted. You can click on these links and join these things. And I would say on Tuesday, stay tuned for talks by Pedro, who's going to talk not only about performance, but also about how we do development in the software project. Okay, next. So this one, I like to just sort of summarize all of what I just said in numbers with kind of a rough order of magnitude estimate of how sort of the project has had impact over the years. And I would say just go ahead and animate these. So over that time, we've had thousands of users, hundreds of developers, and dozens of institutions that have been generating thousands of commits, hundreds of pull requests, dozens of releases if you go look at GitHub. All of that work in turn is attracting lots of visits to the repository, lots of clones of the repository every 2 weeks. And the output of that is thousands of hours of training, hundreds of research papers, and dozens of theses. And this is all for sort of research and educational purposes, and it continues to go. So this is something we're very proud of. We love to see people using the code and just becoming more active out in the community. So next. I want to switch gears a little bit and come back to talk about the SU2 Foundation. So we mentioned that over the years, the code kept growing, and a handful of years ago, the folks in the community wanted to come together and put together a formal organization that could help with the management of the software going forward, make sure it's sustainable, make sure we can keep the code open and available for everyone, going forward. And so what we did in 2019 was come together as a group and establish the SU2 Foundation. This is a nonprofit incorporated in the US, and it has an all-volunteer board that helps manage the day-to-day of the sort of the project, and not just the code, but also management and administration issues. And so if you want any more information about this, you can go see our webpage that's linked there at the bottom, su2foundation.org. There's a lot more information about the current board and the goals, and there's other good material and content linked there. But what I would point out to you is the mission that's listed here, and this is why we originally put the foundation together. So first of all, it's to promote global software development and education to increase the pace of innovation in engineering sciences. And that's for public benefit. So this is, like I said, it's always been about community and public benefit. And second, it's to provide a neutral forum for community collaboration. So basically, some infrastructure, some way to help manage and support the community, make sure it's a sustainable project over the long term. So what has the board been working on lately in the SU2 Foundation? Lately, in the past couple of months, we've been putting a lot of effort into our strategic plan. And so this is something that we're trying to put down on paper. How do we take the mission and turn it into clear objectives and actions? And this is something that, we have a good first version of this document. We're going to share that with everyone. The key focus areas in that document are related to management and coordination, fundraising, how we grow and support a staff, hopefully in the future, and then aspects of education, training, and support. And so this first document we have ready. We're actually going to have a session at the end of today where Juan is going to walk through what we have in that document for you. And we're going to talk about the different areas and how people can get involved, because we definitely do need your support as a community. So we would love to hear ideas about how people would like to tackle some of these challenges, and hopefully get some of you to sign up as volunteers to help us out. So we do need your support. And of course, as a foundation, we, to advance that mission, we really do rely on the support of not only individuals, but also organizations and companies. And so we have a formal sponsorship program. We recognize donors at 4 different levels. And I'd like to start by thanking Robert Bosch LLC. They are our largest sponsor. We've had a great relationship with Bosch over the past few years. We really appreciate not only, of course, the financial support, but really appreciate the willingness to collaborate with the community, the initiative to work on the science and the technology, and work with the developers of the software. So there's just been a lot of great collaboration with Bosch over the years. And I would point you, in fact, to this morning's session. We have 3 separate talks that involve Bosch folks. And we also have a talk on Wednesday by Toby to go through some of the aspects of development. So a lot of great participation from Bosch. I would also mention there is another group of organizations that have sponsored us, and they're listed here. And each of these organizations we'll be seeing in different talks throughout the program. And so we really do appreciate the support. I just want to say thank you to all. If you're interested in sponsoring the foundation, There is a page here listed at the bottom, and again, these slides will be posted. Please go to the sponsorship page and contact us for more information. Okay, so with that, let's talk a little bit about the virtual program, so how the event's going to work. The information, the latest information, will be posted during the event to the conference page. It's listed there. Think of that as sort of the home for anything you need. Each day we'll keep that updated with new links to the slides or videos, what have you. So always check there first for information. The program itself, this year we had added even more content. So last year I think we had about 25 talks. This year we have 31 talks, and these are both in featured and lightning formats. The featured ones being about 25 minutes, and then the lightning format talks being about 15. And the idea is to leave about 4 minutes at the end for Q&A. And so we have 3 days with the 2 sessions with a break in between. Each of the days includes kind of an open-ended discussion. The first 2 days, the third day we're having a happy hour, but it's also sort of open-ended that we would like you to join. Talks will be recorded and posted to the web afterward, with permission, of course. And the way we'd like the chat to run is that folks please leave questions for speakers in the GoToWebinar chat window. And what we'll do is toward the end of the talks for a few minutes, we'll help sort of moderate and pass the questions to the speakers, and you know, we'll try to help that conversation. If we don't get to all of them, we will copy them down and we'll send them to authors after the fact. And so you may find that there are extra contributions also on that main website, so be on the lookout for extra slides, video, etc. Okay. All right, and of course I can't preview everything, but I did go ahead and snag a few teaser images and videos from some of the content you're going to see this week. And this, of course, is not my work. These are images from many of the presentations you're going to see, many of the authors. And so the idea here is just to give you a feel for kind of the breadth of topics that are going to be covered in this meeting. And this doesn't even cover them all, but you'll see things in different application spaces like supersonics, hypersonics, turbomachinery. You'll find things that are related to numerical methods and, you know, turbulence modeling, so like higher order methods or scale resolving flows. You'll see a whole session actually on multiphysics and coupling with different codes, and people working on MDO type topics. And last but not least, you'll see also some, you know, kind of fine-grained details about how we do performance optimization in the code and some of the latest advances there. So this is just to get you a little bit excited about what's to come. And you know, we hope you can be here for all of these talks. So lastly, I want to say that we're doing something new this year. We are going to implement 2 awards, and the first one, if you go ahead and just animate those, the first one is an award for contribution to the community, and I've pasted the text here directly, but this text is also on the conference webpage, so please go there and take a look afterwards. This first award is given annually to the person making the most outstanding contribution to the progress of the project during the past year as determined by nomination. So we would ask that you send nominations to the chair of this awards committee, Professor Marco Fossati, information there before the closing happy hour with a nominee. And the second award is for best presentation at this conference. So after the final talk on Wednesday, we would ask you to express your opinion on the talks. We have an anonymous voting form that's linked there. Again, this information will be on the conference website, so just go there after the talks and you'll find a link there. And we would ask you to go ahead and put in you know, your opinions, your ratings, and the authors with the highest average score at the end will be named the recipient of this year's award. So we'll announce those at the end of the conference as part of the virtual happy hour, and the winners will receive a small token of appreciation. Okay, so with that, I think we're right on time. I'd just like to remind you that we really do rely on everyone's input as a volunteer organization. We could really use your help to sort of advance our mission for education, research, and innovation. And so there are a few links here that you can click on to get involved. So the email list, again, if you're a developer or you're interested in the software, just go to GitHub. Everything's there in the open for you. And if you're interested in the foundation itself and some of our programs or sponsorship, you can email us there or just go to the website and find more information.